Hey everyone, and welcome back to season 4 of the So Cultured podcast. We are so excited to be back because we have taken quite a long break. I think it's been about 2 months, so it's safe to say that we have missed you guys so much and we have missed filming. But we are back, obviously, with a brand new season, and this season is called The Origins, and this season is all about discovering science through the lens of history. So basically, we are going to be telling you all about the untold stories and breakthroughs that shaped some of today's biggest scientific fields. As a little spoiler, we're going to be covering a few topics like the origins of viruses and the origins of AI, but that is all the spoilers that you're going to get because we just have so many fun topics to bring you guys.
Yeah, and of course, we'll always be doing our laboratories where we get interesting and funny stories from you guys from the lab or at work. And we're actually mixing it up this season. We are getting you guys involved in some would you rathers. So if you've had a keen eye on our Instagram stories, you would have seen that we have put up a multitude of would you rathers. So we are going to be discussing those on some of our episodes as well. But there will be some things that are a little bit different.
Yeah, guys, I'm so sad to announce I will be leaving the So Cultured podcast. I have started my postdoc and I will be starting to do some teaching, lecturing, maybe even branching out into policy. And I'm also going to be running some short courses alongside a lot of other things and exciting research with a highly collaborative group. So I'm currently in plans of traveling all over the UK for my research and perhaps doing a 3-month stint abroad as well. So things are super busy for me, but I'm really excited to continue doing my academic journey as well as stuff through my Instagram channel. So if you want to keep up to date with me, you can still follow me on @marinebiology with Yaz on socials. But of course, I'm so sad to be leaving the girls and this podcast. I feel like we have had such an amazing journey.
The best time.
We have had the best time being able to talk about so many different topics, and it has been absolutely incredible. And I just wanted to say that I'm excited to learn about the origin stories and can't wait to hear this season of the podcast.
Yeah, it's really sad to see you go, but honestly, I can't wait to see what's in store for you with like your new job and like social media. So I am really excited for you, but obviously it is really sad to see you go because you're part of the So Cultured fam.
I know,
Thanks,
from the
guys.
start. But we're still besties, and I feel like, like people underestimate how hard it is to do content and have a full-time job. Like it's so difficult sometimes, and I think sometimes you just have to take the decision and just say something's got to give somewhere, and for you that just happened to be the podcast. And to be honest, I understand like so much work goes into creating this podcast, like writing our scripts, figuring out everything behind the scenes between us three, filming. I mean, like we've always said on the podcast before, we're always filming super late at night. And as we have learned on this podcast, Yaz is a girl who likes her sleep. She likes to be in bed early. She likes to be like up early. So we totally understand. But obviously, we're so sad to see you go. And maybe in the future, we could get you back on for like a special episode as a guest or something. So I feel like that would be super fun. And we know everyone is going to really miss you. But yeah, as Yaz said, me and Taz will be continuing the podcast as it is just us two. And obviously things will feel a little bit different, but we hope that we can still bring you like a super fun podcast that you guys are going to still really enjoy, even though we'll be missing Yaz very sadly.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I can't believe it. It is literally feeling like the end of an era. But as this is my last episode, I feel like in my true nature, I will tell you a dumb and funny story of something that happened to me recently.
Go on.
Okay.
So I have just started a postdoc. I have got a new laptop and it is like a ThinkPad one.
Yay.
And I was just trying to download like Spotify and getting all my things together.
No, I'm joking. ThinkPad's actually good. They're actually good.
It was the yay. Oh.
No, they're good.
Yeah, I wish it was a Mac. When they saw that I have a Mac as my personal laptop, they were like, oh, sorry, you're not going to like this laptop. And I was like, oh. But anyway, I downloaded Spotify and I'm obsessed with like old school The Weeknd. I don't know if you guys like him, but it's like
I love him.
old school. So anyway, I was installing Spotify on my new laptop, just trying to listen to my music whilst doing work. And then as I was just listening to my tunes, minding my own business, this pop-up came up on my work laptop. And I literally shut down the screen. Like, I was like, what is this? It was eyes, right? It was this really like scary looking face, or it was scary to me because like, where did this come from? And it was just these eyes staring at you, but it was a full screen video. And I was like, I have been at this job for a week and I have got a virus that has just come and like given me this video. And I was like, something's watching me, like something is actually watching me. So I called the like computer support thing, being like, something has come up and I have a virus, like something's going on, and I haven't downloaded anything out of the ordinary, like please let me know, like what can I do, because I'm scared to go on it because these eyes are like looking at me. And yeah, literally called my friend and she was creasing at me like, what is going on? And I was like, nah, this is scary. So anyway, got off the phone to tech support, even contacted like general Windows support to be like, something's happened, I don't know what's going on. And no one could find anything out. You know when like tech support can come onto your laptop to actually like take over the screen to check it? They did all of this, right? And I was sitting there like, nah, something's weird. And anyway, fast forward like a couple of days or a couple of weeks, I must have been listening to the same songs I was listening to. And it's The Weeknd, like his old songs. So I don't know if you like him. And oh my God, I realized in one of his albums or playlists, it's his music video that just popped up as a video.
Oh my God.
It has these eyes. And I wasted tech support, everyone's like time being like, I've got a virus. And I didn't go on my laptop. I was literally like, I've actually in the first week. And it was the music video of these eyes. So if anyone wants to, after this, click on that video. You're going to see the eyes that I was talking about. But I was so scared. Like,
what song was it?
Oh, I can't even remember. But at the bottom of one of his albums, like, you know, when it has like a video thing that pops up, it just came up. And I didn't put two and two together until after I'd wasted their time.
Yes, that's like something my nan would do. Like, actually.
Yeah.
Because did you not just try and like close it, like close everything?
I closed the laptop and then I was like, I just didn't want to go on it because I was like, something.
No,
I didn't. I didn't know.
Was it like human eyes or
hello,
like
how can I
googly
help?
eyes?
There's a Weeknd album cover on my laptop. Please help me.
I didn't know it was until after, like days after.
So funny.
Anyway, I don't know if this kind of stuff happens to anyone else, but just to let you know, it happens to the best of us.
No, babe, I think that's just you.
But anyway, I've never thankfully had a virus on my computer, and I'm not starting now because obviously it was not a virus, so we're winning.
That is so funny. I think the only time I've ever like downloaded a virus onto my computer was when, you know, it's like MSN times when you like used to come home after school, jump on the computer. I would always try and download the 𝗂𝗂𝗧𝗂 cursors for your computers. And they would honestly always give your computer like the worst virus.
Did they?
Yeah.
I remember the cursors. And like the glittery like writing, like you could download like words.
Yes.
Love.
That. I think I was too scared.
That makes me feel so nostalgic.
God, we're really showing our age with like MSN and like sparkly cursors and stuff. But speaking of viruses, guys, it actually brings me on to this week's episode where we're actually going to talk about the origins of viruses. So let's get into it.
Yay. Welcome to the So Cultured podcast, hosted by Liv, Yaz, and Taz. Three girls exploring the world of science and tech, unfiltered.
This season, we're diving into the origins and taking you on a thrilling journey through the breakthroughs and untold stories that shape today's biggest scientific fields.
And of course, every episode brings the same mix of fun, fresh perspectives, and gossip. AKA 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗂. From lab scandals to workplace drama, nothing is off limits.
This is So Cultured Season 4, The Origins. Alright guys, picture this. Billions of years ago, before dinosaurs, before plants, even before some of the simplest life forms as we know them, something strange and kind of terrifying emerged. Viruses. So today we're actually diving into the mystery of viruses, so where they came from, are they alive? And how have they shaped ancient civilizations? So have you guys ever actually thought about where viruses might have originated from?
Yes, I have. I feel like it's come up in like a few conversations, like at work. I've been in a few seminars and people have kind of mentioned things, but I always feel like without the background, I don't really understand what they're talking about. Because obviously they just like dive straight into the nitty-gritty science. So yes, I've thought about it, and yes, I've heard conversations about it, but I feel like I need someone to start off from the very basics. So can we go with definition of a virus? Let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. So the simple definition of a virus is that it is a microscopic infectious agent consisting of a segment of nucleic acid, so either DNA or RNA, surrounded by a protein coat. And more crucially, a virus can't replicate on its own. So instead, it must infect cells and use components of the host cell to make copies of itself. And usually it's that process that ends up killing the host cell and causing damage to the host organism.
Right. So I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I kind of thought I knew what viruses were, but like that baffles me. So they're actually just floating DNA or RNA in a protective coat, but then they are responsible for causing like major diseases.
Yeah, right. Honestly, as a virologist, this has literally blown my mind, like just learning about them. And like, can you even imagine how the first scientists who actually discovered this felt? And that actually brings me on to the first part of today's episode, and that is what we knew of viruses throughout human history. And I'm so excited to tell you guys about this because it actually majorly features rabies, which, as you guys know, I did my PhD on. So yeah.
I know all about that.
Yeah, you guys should actually be experts in my PhD now. Right, so just to give you guys context, we know that viruses have been around for billions of years and perhaps beyond the age of the last universal common ancestor, or what we call 𝗂𝗂 for short, which is essentially where our tree of life on Earth begins. So where all prokaryotes, eukaryotes, and archaea began. And if you're like, what the hell is that? That's like mammalian cells, so like our cells, bacteria, fungi, they all kind of like converged at the base of this tree of life on Earth. So viruses are thought to maybe precede that, but the effects of viruses such as disease weren't actually traced back to humans until populations were dense enough for diseases to circulate and potentially become endemic, which was around 11,000 years ago in India. So that brings me on to rabies. So rabies is one of the oldest known viral diseases, and it's been documented in ancient texts from ancient India, China, Egypt, Greece, Rome, and the Middle East. So it's a really good example of how humans perceive viruses through time. The word rabies actually originates from the Sanskrit word rabhas, which means to do violence, or the Latin word 𝗂𝗶, which means to rage. But I want to tell you guys about the first record of rabies. So let me take you back to the years 1945 and 1947 in the outskirts of Baghdad in Iraq. Excavators hired by the Iraqi Directorate of Antiquities unearthed 2 large stone tablets, and inscribed on these tablets were the laws of 𝗂𝗯𝗯, dating back to about 1930 BC. So that's almost 4,000 years ago.
Wow, BC. Sorry, just made I heard Liv's chuckle. It's just like trying to think of when BC was.
We just can't mention BC on this podcast without just cracking up.
Yeah, 4,000 years ago. All right, I put that in there just for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. We love you for that.
They were actually from the Babylon Empire in ancient Mesopotamia, which is now known as Iraq, Kuwait, and Syria. And to actually put it into perspective, this civilization was responsible for the way we structure life today, from the number of seconds in a minute, the number of minutes in an hour, to the number of days in a week. But not only that, this civilization were likely the first to use currency, so silver or gold, for the trade of goods like barley and wheat. But obviously, you may be wondering, what has this got to do with viruses?
Yeah, literally. History lesson.
Well, one law inscribed on these tablets dictated the following: owners of dogs that show symptoms of rabies should do what is necessary to prevent the dog from biting the owner or others. Owners of rabid dogs who bite people, causing those people to die, will be given heavy fines. And this was the first ever written record of rabies as a known disease.
Wow.
That's mad.
And that must have been like a lot like ahead of when humans themselves actually knew about rabies, because it's not like they're saying like, oh, this weird disease has come up, or like this weird thing is happening. Like they seem to be pretty, like they know that it causes dogs to like behave this certain way. They know that if you make sure that it doesn't bite anyone, then that's a good thing. So like this is actually, although like the first record, it's probably actually quite late on from when people first knew about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Like that, this is like an established thing. It became made into a law, and that's been inscribed on these tablets, which kind of remind me of like Moses and his tablets. Do you know what I mean? Like when I was doing this research, I was like, I wonder if that's where it originates from, because it's literally like 2000 years BC. So I
have no idea.
That's so interesting.
You know, Moses, he got given 2 tablets from God, and they had the 10 commandments on them. That's kind of like, I was drawing comparison to that in my head. Like, that's so weird.
Oh, as in like how
Like
they've written
laws
it down.
or like, yeah.
But anyway, we're going to fast forward about 1,500 years to ancient Greece.
Of course.
We're back here again, guys.
Here we are. Here we are.
So in and around 400 BC, there was a classical Greek tragedian called Euripides, and he premiered his new play Heracles, which is known today more commonly as Hercules. And in this play, goddess 𝗧𝗂 makes her debut as the goddess of rage, fury, and rabies in animals, and she is ordered by Hera to drive Heracles mad. But not only that, the goddess 𝗧𝗂 has been depicted on ancient Greek vases and appears on the scene of Actaeon's death, and she actually inflicts his own dogs with rabies and directs them to devour him as punishment for seeing the goddess Artemis naked. And that is actually why today we use the term 𝗧𝗂virus to describe the group of viruses that cause rabies disease.
That's mad.
No way.
I know.
That is insane.
Crazy.
If only we knew that information before.
But also, let's just say that like the person who then coined the term 𝗧𝗂viruses had to know about this history. So it also brings like science and the history together, because they would have had to know that on these vases that 𝗧𝗂 had already like been depicting rabies anyway. Like just putting the two
unless
together.
the term was coined back then.
Yeah, I mean, usually like if you think of rabies, it kind of originates from like the Latin word for this, like to do violence. And so it kind of links to Greek mythology, in that I think in Greek mythology, like 𝗧𝗂, or a word similar to 𝗧𝗂, means to rage or to like rave, like be kind of mad. So that's kind of where it originates from as well. But I want to tell you guys about my favorite part, right? So in 1st century AD, the Roman scholar Celsus, so now we fast forward about 500 years, even more, okay? And the Roman scholar Celsus actually correctly suggested that rabies was transmitted by the saliva of the biting animal. And to describe this infected saliva, he actually invented the word virus, which is the Latin word for poison or venom. So that is where the word virus originates from.
Wow.
But on the other hand, he incorrectly suggested a cure for rabies, which was by holding the victim underwater. So those that didn't drown died of rabies, so it wasn't that great. And other barbaric cures for rabies included hair of the dog, where the hairs of the rabid dog were laid on the wound or ingested by the patient, which obviously didn't work, but is where the term hair of the dog originates.
So it's nothing to do with
Oh
drinking
my
alcohol
gosh.
the next day to survive your hangover.
No, but it's like something has inflicted pain on you and you're using the same thing to like cure it. That's where it kind of comes from, hair of the dog.
Wow, this is all really interesting. I feel
Yeah.
like these things should be common knowledge, especially like the meaning behind the word virus being related to like poison.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, I know, right? And honestly, this is why I was like kind of really passionate about rabies in my PhD, because I was like, it could be the meaning for why people believed in vampires and werewolves, but also it's deeply rooted in ancient civilizations. That is crazy. But now I want to jump forward in time to Louis Pasteur and Edward Jenner. And you guys should probably know these people because they were the first people to develop vaccines to protect against viral
Can't lie, I don't know.
infections.
I feel like I know Louis Pasteur because that's like milk and stuff, wasn't it? And then Edward Jenner, I don't know who that is, to be fair.
He was the guy who invented the vaccine for smallpox by using cowpox.
Okay.
But anyway, that was around the late 18th century. But the nature of viruses actually remained unknown. Like they didn't actually know exactly what was causing these diseases, even though they created these vaccinations for people. And we didn't know anything until the invention of the electron microscope in the 1930s. So until the 1930s, most scientists believed that viruses were small bacteria, but following the invention of the electron microscope in 1931, they were shown to be completely different, to the point that not all scientists were convinced that they were anything other than just accumulations of toxic proteins. But when it was discovered that viruses contain genetic material in the form of DNA or RNA, this idea was completely dismissed, and they were then recognized as distinct biological entities and were soon shown to be the cause of numerous infections of like plants, animals, and even bacteria.
Damn. So wait, what you're saying that it's only been in the last 100 years that we've actually discovered what viruses really are? Because the advancements in science, I think, have been absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So could you describe for us and the listeners the sort of things that we can do now?
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that we have like documented evidence of humans knowing about one disease for literally thousands of years, but it's only been in the past 100 years that we knew what was causing it is just so mad. And then to think of the things that we can do with viruses now is even crazier. So we can literally engineer our own viruses or use viral components to do things in science. We can literally make more cross-protective vaccines, or even use the technology for gene therapy, where we can utilize viruses to deliver genes to ourselves to cure genetic diseases like cystic fibrosis or like sickle cell disease, or even utilize bacteriophages, which are viruses that infect bacteria, to perform different techniques in the lab. So there's a technique called phage display, which is at the basis of quite a lot of different technologies in the lab. And we can also use bacteriophages for potential therapy for antibiotic resistant bacteria. So yeah, there's so many different applications now.
That's so cool.
So many. And I feel like we've discussed so many of these in previous episodes. So yeah, that's literally just insane. And I feel like all of us probably work with people who use these techniques or maybe even use them ourselves, and same goes for our listeners.
Yeah.
But I want to ask, so like you mentioned viruses have been around for billions of years, but this is the ultimate question, right? Is like where did they come from? And then how do we study that?
Right, because viruses are actually too small and fragile to leave a fossil record. Like they're not just going to be in rock, you know, but they do actually leave a molecular trace in the DNA of their hosts. So even yours or my DNA. And this is known as like, I guess, a molecular fossil trail that can actually help us understand where viruses came from and actually how they evolved. And this is actually where paleovirology comes in, which is a fairly new field combining paleontology and genomics. So when a virus infects a host, its genetic material sometimes integrates into the host DNA. And if that actually happens into a reproductive cell, the viral genome can be passed down to the offspring, effectively becoming this fossil in our DNA. So this integrated viral DNA can actually be preserved for millions of years and much longer than the virus itself, because viruses, they mutate really quickly. But if they're integrated into the host DNA, they can only mutate as fast as the host. And obviously, mammals and plants, they evolve a lot slower than literal viruses. So by comparing these sequences across different species, scientists can actually trace the history of viruses. So if a sequence of viral DNA is found in two different animals, then they probably got it from a common ancestor. And a really good example of this is 𝗂𝗂viruses, which cause stomach issues in dogs and were once thought to only be about 500 years old. But traces of these viruses in dogs, cats, and even pandas show that they actually date back to 68 million years. And a bit more relevant to us is a gene in mammals called 𝗂𝗂𝘂, which is thought to originate from an ancient retrovirus. And that dates back to around 125 to 180 million years ago, from the very early stages of mammal evolution. And around 8% of the human genome contains sequences that originally come from viruses.
What?
Can I just say something quickly though?
Oh, yeah.
So you know how you said 𝗂𝗂viruses are found, like, they cause stomach issues in dogs, but then there was traces of that same virus found in dogs, cats, and pandas. I don't get how that means that you can trace it back, because surely the virus can just infect more than one species.
So the 𝗂𝗂viruses that are around today just infect dogs, but in like the DNA of dogs and cats and pandas, they found residual viral genes from 𝗂𝗂viruses, which means at some point, these viruses were able to infect like all three. But scientists have proven that it would have been a common ancestor, and that was where it was integrated into like the host genome.
Oh, I've got you. So it's like if they were to look at, like, for example, like a cat's DNA now, they can see traces of that 𝗂𝗂virus.
Yeah,
okay,
where
got
in
you.
like ancestor, it infected the ancestor, integrated into the DNA, into like a reproductive cell, and then from that point onwards, all the offspring of that ancestor had traces of this gene. And we also have viral genes, and that originates from when our ancestors got infected by viruses.
So does that always happen, that it integrates into the genome?
No, it's only really specific viruses. So retroviruses, they have a specific code that allows it to be integrated into the host DNA, but not very many.
And that's why like
have
retroviruses are used for like gene therapy, right? Because they can do that.
Is that why they're called retro? Because they're like old?
I have no idea.
Maybe.
I don't know the answer, so it could be right.
So anyway, if they are retro and old school, I guess they can be traced back to millions of years ago. But where did they actually first come from? Can we understand that, or do we know?
Yeah, exactly. So paleovirology reveals ancient history of viruses, but it doesn't actually answer when they first originated. And there are actually several theories for this. Like, we don't fully know the answer, but there's a few theories for the origin of viruses. So the first theory is probably like maybe the simplest one to understand, which is the virus first model. The virus first model proposes that because viruses are so much simpler than cellular life, that they must have evolved first. And according to this theory, viruses may have evolved from very simple self-replicating molecules, probably made of RNA, before cells even existed. And these molecules would have been able to replicate themselves in a primitive RNA-based world. But instead of evolving into complex cells, they just remained kind of parasitic, infecting more complex structures as cells began to evolve. So the key thing here is that viruses, as we know them, do need a host to replicate. So this may be the main pitfall of this theory. But to sum up, viruses could have been considered remnants of like an earlier, more primitive stage of life, existing in a time where like the life forms were much simpler and they've just evolved with us. So the second hypothesis is called the escape hypothesis, and that takes a different approach, and it suggests that viruses evolved from within the genomes of cells. So like if you imagine a standard cell, and in this model, viruses didn't predate cellular life, but instead arose after the cells had already evolved. So, for example, our cells can replicate DNA. So the theory is, under certain conditions, part of the host genome and the proteins responsible for like aiding replication could have acquired a protein coat, and this essentially forms the basis of a virus particle. And over time, this could have evolved into like a fully functional and infectious virus. So in this model, viruses are essentially escaped bits of genetic material that, instead of staying within the host cell, gain the ability to infect other cells and spread, and are actually like a byproduct of cellular life and emerge a lot later than the initial model suggested.
Yeah, I find that mad.
Yeah, I know. I actually kind of think the second one could be true.
Yeah, I was going to ask you which one you think is more likely. I mean, the second one sounds more likely to me, but the hell do I know?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you the third one, and then I'll ask you guys what you think, and I'll give you my opinion too. So the third hypothesis is called the regressive model, and this proposes that viruses could have once been large and complex organisms similar to bacteria and able to replicate independently, but at some point developed a symbiotic relationship with another organism, and over time eventually became parasitic. So as these organisms evolved, it became increasingly dependent on this host cell for replication and survival, and ultimately it lost the ability to function without a host, losing most of their complexity to the simple and efficient viruses that we know today. And this theory kind of got quite a lot of not backlash, but like people didn't tend to believe it, but it was actually supported more after the discovery of the giant viruses like the 𝗵𝗵 viruses, which have more genes than a typical virus and can perform some functions that are usually reserved for cellular life, such as protein synthesis. But saying that, recent studies of 𝗵𝗵 viruses, for example, have led to some scientists to question whether these extra genes are remnants from the host or part of more complex evolutionary history. So this model does provide a plausible explanation for some viruses, but it doesn't really account for all the diversity that we see in viruses today.
I feel like it's most interesting because the theory where it's like viruses came first, but if viruses need to exist in a life form, it's like maybe they evolved simultaneously rather than the other theory of like viruses, came first or then they came after cellular life. Maybe it was that they came together, and I don't know. But I did like that theory. Was it the second one where it was like part of your DNA anyway, that then kind of like got a protein coat and was able to break off from the cellular DNA?
The way I thought about it, right, was if you had a cell and you know in your body your cell releases exosomes, which are like your cell membrane, and it releases like, I don't know, little lipid particles out. And I was like, yeah, surely there could have been certain conditions, a bit of DNA go out and a bit of like protein that helped replicate, and then that's where it originated from.
And the third one, it's like, if it was true, like the third one. So, for example, you mentioned the 𝗵𝗵 virus, and the reason that people think it supports that theory is because it's got more genes than normal viruses. Like, is that the only example? Because if so, I would find it weird that there's like only one virus left to support that idea. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a term for
a group.
More than just one, group of viruses. But
I mean, I guess like what other explanations exist for why that 𝗵𝗵 virus has more genes then?
No,
I don't know, like, I guess people need to explore that idea further to really disprove the third theory, right?
Yeah, I thought you would like the third theory, Yaz, because of the whole like symbiotic relationship, and you see that a lot in marine life.
Literally what I'm thinking is, one, how would they originally be free living organisms, and then why would they lose the capability to function on their own? Like, what would that enable? Because yes, the symbiotic aspect of being able to like work well in a host system and then lose the ability to live on their own, it's then so reliant on there always being a host. So the fact that the viruses have to evolve really rapidly and quickly, I don't know if that's favored in evolution. I guess it has been, because viruses today like can replicate so quick, so it's good. But maybe back then, like, what was the selective pressures that enabled them to always evolve?
I think the key foundation of it went from a symbiotic relationship to like a parasitic one.
Yeah.
So it would kind of like overcome the host that it was in to be able to like reproduce massively. And then, so that would probably be the evolutionary advantage.
Yeah.
But it's a bit sad for them if they were more complex and then they became more simple. But maybe that's just easier
relatable.
for them.
Me after doing a PhD.
Oh my god, I feel that.
We literally just got dumber, I swear. I mean, I'm kind of sad that this is not your fault, but obviously. But I'm kind of sad that like we don't actually have like a definitive answer. Like, I want to know which one it is. I need this question answered. We need to start disproving this theory. People need to look into the Mimi virus and really explore why it's got more genes. I need to know. I have one last question for Taz, which is something that I always think about, and I feel like it's really, really relevant to that third theory. Do you think viruses are alive? Let's finish on that.
Oh my god. This is like a classic question in science. And what I'm going to say to you is that I think viruses are only alive once they're in the host, and any other time they're in this like dormant death state. So that is my answer to you.
Okay. Yeah. Very relevant for that third theory. Okay.
Yeah, that was amazing. Thanks so much for that, Taz. I literally had no idea that there was some ancient Greeks that related to the whole term of like lysoviruses and stuff like that. So I think you did a very good job covering such a complex topic. And I'm sure...
I mean, she is a virologist. So like, if she did a job, I'd be a bit concerned.
That's very true, yeah. I feel like...
Not a historian, though, to be fair.
Yeah, very true, very true. I think you smashed it. I think that was really interesting. Loved it.
Thanks. And obviously, if you're listening and you're like, I want to learn more about this stuff, then of course, we'll always leave the links in the description below.
Yep. And you can join us next week where I'm going to be discussing all about the origins of AI. But for now, we have a listener story all about their lab turning into a cult. So let's get into that. Ooh. But I'm worth it, 'cause I'll slip into your dreams tonight. So give me your Okay, so I'm going to get straight into this email because, as I said, we had like, a 2-3 month break. I can't remember how long it was now, but we have some very crazy stories piled up. So let's get into this one. So it starts off with saying, my lab is a cult. I've been completely ousted from my research group because I refuse to participate in anything anymore, and it's hurting my chances for a great career. No more attending publication workshops, group events, or even conferences. I just don't feel safe spending a week with them without facing bullying. Everyone is constantly competing to be the apple of my supervisor's eye, but very few actually contribute much scientifically. Most just do the bare minimum to get by or get someone else to do it for them. It's like a popularity contest, and I've lost it badly. Honestly, I think my lab has turned into a cult.
No way. But let's just talk about what even is a cult, because would you class being bullied as them being a cult? I feel like they've just hyped it up. Like, I don't feel like the lab's a cult.
I felt the opposite, right? Because I don't know, it depends. Initially, I thought it's the opposite of a cult because you don't want to be... Well, I guess she doesn't want to be in the cult, though.
But that's the thing. Like, a cult, you, like, get drawn into it. Whereas they're just like, nah, I've like, lost the popularity contest. So
no. It is like a cult. No, it is like a cult because everybody in the lab is, like, obsessed with the lab. And if you don't come to anything, then you're, like, ousted from the group. And everyone is competing to be, like, the teacher's pet and, like, the supervisor's favourite. So, actually, yes... She is in a cult. He is in a cult. We don't know.
Can I just say, this reminds me of you, Liv. You say you never attend like pub trips with your lab. So I feel like, do you feel like you're in the same... Well, this might have been an old lab. Like, you don't really go to like the pub events or the social events with your lab?
No, because like nobody is annoyed at me if I don't go. Like everybody's just like, oh,
Yeah.
you're not coming. Okay, cool. Whereas they basically feel like they're being bullied because they're not
Yeah.
attending all of these events. In which case, yeah, I'd be screwed because I don't want to go. I'm so sorry. Like, I love my supervisor. He is incredible. I love my research group. They are incredible. And like, I genuinely think they're all amazing. But like, I'm so sorry. I don't want to spend my Friday night with you. I just don't. And that's okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, that should be okay. And I'm allowed to say that. I don't want, and do you know what? I'm pretty sure my supervisor also does not want to spend his Friday night with me. And that's okay as well.
What advice am I meant to say here? Like, yeah, it's that they're being like this, but you just need to do your own thing and continue. Or...
Well, the issue is that they say the reason they don't want to be involved is because they feel like they're being bullied because everyone's in competition with the supervisor. So there's like no real friendships or like real collaboration going on. It's everyone's in competition to like be the teacher's pet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult because the thing about teachers' pets is that you do get a lot of them in science. I'm
Okay,
just
wait.
gonna say it. You do.
Is Taz the teacher's pet? Was Taz the teacher's pet? Because I feel like that is the vibe because Taz was like golden child, like good grades. Were you the teacher's
I would say,
Yeah.
I would say up until year 10, I was such a teacher's pet. I happily admit that. But like
I can
year
imagine.
11 plus, I literally just didn't care anymore.
Okay.
So,
Rebel.
oh yeah.
Rebel life.
Hit 16 and I was like, get me out of here, babes.
No way, yeah. Damn.
See, I just don't attend and I don't care. This is the thing. I don't know if this listener cares or not, if they're just telling us or if they're like upset about it. So it's difficult to know what to say because, yeah, like Yaz said, I'm very much the same. I don't want to go to I'm sorry. I don't want to go to conferences. Do you know what? I'm coming out. I hate conferences. I don't want to go to them. I'm happy to hear the science, but I would much rather listen to it online from the comfort of my desk, to be quite honest. But the thing is, no one cares, and I don't care if anyone does care. So it's difficult because let's go with like, if they are upset about it, what advice do you have?
Honestly, move labs because they're not all like that. And I was definitely in a lab where certain more senior supervisors or PIs definitely had favorites. And then I went to other labs and it's kind of been like so collaborative. Like it's kind of blown my mind coming to Australia actually, because the lab that I'm in is like very collaborative. Everyone's kind of willing to help each other. And I'm like, this is wild, because in my previous lab, it was not like that at all. It was not collaborative. Everyone was so busy, like too busy to help. And the supervisors definitely had favorites. So yeah, maybe just move labs, unless you're doing a PhD, obviously. Grill it out until you're done. But yeah, it's quite easy to move labs and get a new position. So maybe do that. It's good for you.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and say, join the cult. Like, just join it. Just be part of it and then enjoy the benefits. Like, lick your supervisors up more than them and become the teacher's pet. You sometimes have to play the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you can't beat them, join them. And that is my advice to you. Join the cult, be the leader of the cult, and then everyone will start licking your arm too, because you're going to be the teacher's pet. And if you don't like that process, then you can do Taz's option. But if you want to stay in the lab, carry on your research, just be a better cult follower than all the other people in the lab. That is my advice.
But also, I'm just going to say one more thing as well, is that, yeah, I know I said like, oh, I hate conferences, I hate this, I hate that, I don't want to do it. At the end of the day, like, I have to accept that's a big part of my job. And even though I don't like doing it, I have to do it. So I probably don't do it as often as, like, for example, Yaz does, because I know, Yaz, you love it. But like, you still have to do it. And you've said here in the email that no more attending publication workshops, group events, or even conferences. I think you still need to attend, even if you're not enjoying it. And like, if the bullying is actually really bad, then you need to go and talk to someone about it, because this shouldn't get in the way of you attending these things. Because yeah, even if you hate them, these are things that you actually need to do as part of your job.
Yeah. Like, actual real advice, there should be someone at a uni who can help or be like a mediator to it, because if your PI is also allowing it to happen, then that's not good from the PI. But from like a light-hearted point of view, if it's just that they really piss you off and you're just like, nah, I hate how they're all like kissing up, then just be like, I'm joining in, I'm going to be the PI's best, but if it's actually like
Nah, I couldn't do
considerably
that.
like affecting your mental health, then nah. I'd be savage. I would wear like the crown for being the queen of this cult.
Yeah, but then like, you know, what does it take to become the teacher's pet? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
what does it take to become closest to the cult leader?
true.
Yeah, you don't know
That's
what
the
all these other
question.
scientists are doing behind closed doors.
Oh,
Exactly.
It could be a little bit more than what we think. Because they're not doing the science, right? They already said that. They're not doing enough science. They're getting other people to do it. So now it's taking a whole nother route that they must be doing some more questionable things.
Well, we never know what's going on. But yeah, they do say very few actually contribute much scientifically.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it
Yeah,
says.
that's
So
weird.
most just do the bare minimum to get by or get someone else to do it for them.
So they're putting in more effort to become the teacher's pet rather than actually doing the
And
work.
actually, yeah, that's what it sounds like. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not about to get into some popularity contest and, you know, like fight for someone's attention. That's something I'll never do, is fight for someone's attention, to be quite honest. So I'm gonna just stay in my lane and do what I need to do. Do you know what I mean? I'm not getting into it.
Okay, so 3 completely different answers there. Like mine was just
Literally.
leave the lab because there's like better labs that are collaborative and
Dark
like work
out.
together. Liv's is just deal with it because like just don't get involved in the cult because it's not
Stay in
worth
your
it.
own lane. Stay in your own
lane. And then Yaz is be petty, lick the supervisors up, and
join the
become
cult.
and join the cult. Okay, well, I'm glad we can all agree.
I think we're going to have to throw this one to our other listeners, right? Like,
Yeah.
Clearly us 3 can't make a decision. So let's throw it to our other listeners. You guys are going to have to comment down below. Who do you agree with and what do you think our other listener should do in this situation? What would you guys do? Let us know in the comments.
Okay, so if you guys would like to send in your laboratory, we will always leave our anonymous link in the description as well. Next week, Liv, do you want to tell us what you will be talking about?
Yeah, so we are going to be delving into the history of AI. We're going to be talking all about how the field originated, and it is actually so interesting. So I'm very excited for next week's episode.
Okay, guys, that's everything for this week. See you guys next week.
Bye.